Hey, it's Scott Carlson, joined today by Sid Dinsdale, candidate for United States Senate in the great state of Nebraska. Sid, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Great to be here, Scott. Appreciate it.
Now, Sid, you are a lifetime Nebraska resident. Why don't you just start by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you come from, and how you got to where you're at now?
Sure will, Scott. I'm running for the United States Senate in the Republican primary, which is May 13th. I grew up in Palmer, Nebraska. That's where I announced my candidacy on September 16th. Then I went to Lincoln, where Tom Osborne endorsed me and announced me, and then back to Elkhorn, where we've lived since 1991. I have 3 grown children, 3 grandchildren, another one on the way. Been married for 37 years to a great lady who allowed me to do this. My resume for running for office is quite a bit different than the other challengers and most people that do. I've been in business 37 years in the community banking business. A lot of you will know of our company, Pinnacle Bank, and we're also in a number of ag companies across the state. So I have a broad range of business experience in ag and community banking. My wife and I have also been involved on a lot of community boards and service boards in Omaha and across the state, and I'm currently on the Nebraska Methodist Health System Board and the Stratcom Consultation Committee at Sac Air Force Base. So I have a military connection there also. I'm running because I would like to slow down the growth of government. Ideally, I'd like to shrink federal government. I'm all about more Nebraska, less them, and my resume is such that I've had a great career. I'm not after another career. I'll serve up to 2 terms, and that's it. So we employ several hundred people across the state, and I understand what regulation from Washington, D.C. does to a business or a high school or a school board. They just don't understand back there what they're doing, in my opinion.
You know, you mentioned you're a little bit different than most other candidates that run, and that's one thing I wanted to touch on with you this morning. If we look at Washington, in fact, if we go back quite a ways in history, Washington is full of lawyers. You are a banker. Tell us a little bit about what you feel your expertise in the financial industry can do for our country, because obviously that's a primary concern for most Americans, the financial state of this country. Your thoughts on what you can bring to Washington?
Right. I think, as we all know, whether we know the exact numbers or not, we all know and feel that the federal government is spending way too much money, and we're aware of the huge debt that we have, $17 trillion, and much more than that is off the books that we also are obligated on. So I would start at the fact that we have over $200 billion of monthly tax revenue coming into the federal government, which I think is plenty. $200 billion is a hard number to get your head around. Certainly we can make that work. Go through the priority list that we have, starting with the Defense Department. If we don't have a strong defense, we're in deep, deep trouble. So I would start there and then try to bring accountability to each department. It seems like we always add to the federal government, but we never subtract. And certainly there's a lot of things that we can change, a lot of waste. I know the farm bill, for example, is trapped right now, but it's 80% nutrition and 20% farm. Unfortunately, we're probably going to have to hold our nose and sign something we don't like to get it passed. But my point is the growth in the farm program is not farm related, it's nutrition related. This new farm bill would make some desirable changes. But so back to your question, Scott, I would try to use my fiscal experience and the fact that I'm going to run for only 2 terms. And we all know, I think they think we're stupid, but we all know we've got to check entitlement growth. We've got to figure out how to slow down the entitlement growth as part of the solution to our fiscal problems. But we can do it. We can do it. We just have a few tough decisions, and they're tough, and we're not all going to agree on everything, but we can do it.
One of the other things, Sid, that's at the forefront of most Americans' minds, and for sure here in Nebraska, is Obamacare. And this is a law that has affected, I think, everybody from coast to coast. And we look at the exchanges, we look at the rollout of the website and the problems that occurred there. I noticed one of the things you mentioned in your platform is the repeal of Obamacare. Talk to us a little bit about your thoughts on Obamacare and why you think that needs to go away.
Right. I believe we have to repeal Obamacare because philosophically I'm opposed to a single-payer government system, which looks like it's going to make everybody in healthcare and a government employee first and foremost. That is something I don't like philosophically. And secondly, Obamacare did not address the issue that we all know is the real issue of healthcare. It's not access. Everybody had access, admittedly, some through the front door and some through the emergency room. The problem with health care is cost. And Obamacare did not address how to rein in costs. And reining in costs, a simple example I like to use is LASIK eye surgery. With almost all of us are familiar with that, and the cost change that has happened with LASIK. And that's because of competitive pressures, where we all decide, well, I want to do it, but it costs too much, or I'm going to shop around, and look what the cost has done there. And that's a simple, admittedly, example of what can happen if market forces are involved with healthcare.
Another thing you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation is you see the need, I should say, for term limits in the Senate. And,
right.
That's something I believe in. I agree with you as well. Give us your thoughts, Sid, on why that's important for our country.
I just, in reading about our government, and I continue to read before I did this, this is a big decision. Being a United States Senator is a big thing. And it was never the intention of our forefathers that this government position, or the House for that matter, would be a professional standing. It was to be a citizen legislature. Because what happens is, not that people are bad that spend years and years back there, but they lose touch. They just don't understand. For example, in the Beltway of Washington, D.C. are 23,000 lobbyists. 23,000 lobbyists. So when you talk about who a candidate listens to as time goes by and the years go by, just by human nature, it tends to become less and less home and more the Beltway and all those lobbyists. So I want to go back there as a businessman with no grand political ambitions other than serve 2 terms as a U.S. Senator and try to get some more responsible government back there and get them out of our hair. It's just so obvious to me, Scott, that I don't know your career. I don't know how you got on the radio, but the greatness of our country is when we all pursue our own dreams, our own self-interests. And that's what brings America way above the rest of the world. And I just want to tell you, I'm an optimistic guy. I mean, there is no other country like the United States of America. We are the greatest country on earth. If we just do some of these decisions, become energy independent yesterday, for heaven's sakes, for example. We have a leader in the White House he's our president, and he's a Democrat. But I want our president to do well. But this man, we got what we were afraid we were going to get. We got a guy whose resume was a community organizer. He had no experience, let alone to do a $310 million or 310 million population health care transformation of our whole country's health care. So I know there's frustration out there. I'm frustrated. That's why I'm running. But I look at it as an opportunity because everybody in the country, everybody in the world is watching the United States. We're a beacon of light for the rest of the world. In spite of our chaos and confusion back there, now the whole world is watching. And I want to be part of a revolution back to what makes us great.
We are joined by Sid Dinsdale, candidate for the United States Senate in Nebraska. Sid, another thing I noticed as I read through your platform and your biography is that you want to create an environment that promotes the growth of business right here in our country. Our country now is outsourcing more than I think we ever have. Why is it important that we keep our businesses right here in the United States and grow those businesses?
Well, Scott, you're right. It's a really unusual time. Manufacturing is starting to move back to the United States, but it will really only move in a big way if we have the right incentives for jobs. I travel around the state of Nebraska in an old-fashioned way, candidating for this position in a truck with a friend of mine driving me. And I was in Holdridge a month or so ago, and there's a manufacturer there that has 55 employees but wants to have 70, but he can't find tradesmen. So there's something that's out of balance with our unemployment benefits and our system right now that doesn't have enough in it for people to move to a Holdridge, Nebraska, or in Omaha, or North Platte for jobs. Because across Nebraska, Scott, you probably know this, people are wanting to hire. A lot of jobs available, and the people just aren't here. Well, in times past, you had moved from wherever to Holdridge or North Platte for a job, because Nebraska is an island of prosperity in a lot of ways, and I just think we have a great opportunity here if we get the government out of the way and let our businesses, particularly our manufacturers, hire and get after it.
All right, Sid, I'd give you one last opportunity here. Just any message you want to give to the voters out there, now's your moment.
All right, Scott, thanks. Well, Sid for Senate is my website, and I'm on Twitter and Facebook. I've got my campaign office in a strip center in Elkhorn where I live, and going around the state. And I'm just a man with a business background and experience, broad base of experience that wants to serve 2 terms. And I sure appreciate your support. I'll do my best to represent you and make you proud.
All right. We have been joined by Sid Dinsdale, candidate for U.S. Senate in the state of Nebraska. Now's the time, folks. Start getting educated and exercise that right to vote.